What's up, everybody? Real estate investing is a business, not a hobby. Check it out right now.
Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast with your hosts, Jason Balin and Ian Horowitz.
Ian, what's up, buddy?
What's up, dude?
Not too much. You chilling in your office today?
You have the right microphone selected. You sound a little echoey.
Probably.
All right.
Probably a crappy mic. How's that sound? Is that better?
Yeah, no, you're good. I just had to mess with you.
Dude, I got to make sure I got good audio.
All right.
Oh, I definitely have the wrong one. You're right. Hold
See?
on. Hold the line.
How's that?
There you go. Much better.
Yes. Dude. Co-host, baby. After doing 70 shows, you think we'd have this shit squared up. Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. Today is a topic that I really enjoy talking about, and I'm sure Ian loves talking about as well. But first, let's do this. In the comment section, do us a quick favor. Let us know if you are a full-time real estate investor or a part-time real estate investor. There's no right or wrong answer, obviously, but I'm curious. Are more real estate investors kind of going all in, doing this full time, or are you kind of just getting started and doing this, or maybe been around for a long time and doing this part time? Obviously, there's no right or wrong. And I'll tell you what's really, really interesting, and we'll get to this during the show. Some of the most successful people I know are actually part-time real estate investors. All the people I know that own the most real estate actually don't do real estate full time. So we'll get to that here in a little bit. But the reason I really like this topic, real estate investing as a business and not a hobby, is it's not a game. It's not a hobby. The reason why is, there's real risk, there's real real rewards, there's real dollars and cents. You can lose everything if you don't take this, if you don't not doing real estate responsibly. It's just, a hobby is a sport. Hobby doesn't have an economic interest associated with it. And I feel like so many people, they don't treat it like a business. They're treating it like, hey, it's just a side gig. I'm doing this. It's kind of fun. Well, it's not fun when you get slapped in the ass and you lose money on a real estate transaction, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's where some of this comes in. I was thinking about it on my drive in this morning. Jay's like, yo, let's do a show. And I started scrambling, saying, let me find somebody to interview. And I don't know if I was listening to a podcast or a book or whatever, but it hit me is that, a lot of people treat real estate like it's a hobby, right? Like the same way they treat stocks. Like, why is it okay just to take your money and toss it in the stock market and just be like, okay, well, that's what it does. And you don't know what you're really investing into. And I think some of this comes from some of my friends trying to invest in e-com stores and, passively invest with other sponsors or whatever it may be, is that, when you go back and look at it, whatever you're investing in is your business, right? Like, it doesn't matter whether it's stocks, e-com stores, real estate, any of that. When you're taking your dollars or somebody else's dollars and deploying it into an asset, you now have a business, you now have a responsibility. You have almost like like a set of rules, or like you have a responsibility to live up to make sure that you perform. And look, we all make mistakes, because one of the shows that I thought about talking about, Jason, was is like, top 5 mistakes. And I think that's where some of this comes from. Before we can do that, you need to discuss, is real estate a business? And I believe it is, right? There's a lot of real estate investors out there who invest on a part-time basis and treat their numbers on a part-time basis, keeping stuff in Excel, not knowing what they're reporting to their accountant. All these things add up, right? I remember early on when we first started flipping houses, and we were there too, and then we took it to another level, but we're keeping things on Excel, right? And when you keep things on Excel, guess what gets missed? Every dollar that goes into your business or out of your business, a dollar doesn't seem like a lot. But when the United States government is taxing you because you made $100,000 and that's what you reported, but in reality, when you go and put it in QuickBooks, it turns out you only made $95,000. Guess what? That's a huge difference right there, what you're being taxed on. And that's why you should be diligent in your numbers. And if you're looking to grow in what you're doing, you should understand what you're investing into. And it's not just the numbers, it's the business as a whole. from acquisitions, financing, operations, dispositions, and accounting. They all work hand in hand.
And so many people I talk to on a regular basis are like, yeah, I want to do a deal. I want to do my first deal. I want to learn. And listen, you can learn and earn at the exact same time. You're not just going to do your first deal just to best case scenario break even, because if you think best case scenario is you're going to break even, you're going to lose money. It's that simple. Not many real estate investors make what they're projecting on their first deals, or even after they're seasoned investors. We're in a really interesting time right now in the market where you put a property on the market, it sells for more than the last house. Well, you can't base that as a business model, right? Hope is not a strategy. It doesn't work like that. This is a business model that works in any environment if it's treated with respect. We did a show a while ago, a few months back, related to the different hats that you have to wear as a real estate investor. And we can kind of go through that right now as well, so you understand that there's so many aspects. If you want to flip a house, it's not as simple as like, hey, let's go find a property on MLS. Let's go hire a contractor. Let's go find a hard money lender and then flip the house and we'll make a profit. I mean, you need to understand and master, and too many people want to kind of outsource lots of different elements. Different people might argue the most important role for you as a business owner. To me, it's simple. It's always be a good marketer. Marketing is almost everything, and so there's so many different sides of it. And I think all these other hats you really have to kind of understand and master and obsess about as well. But to me, marketing's always been the most important thing, because think about it. Let's say you do marketing to distressed sellers and you do some sort of campaign and you have 3 sellers that call you this month, right? Well, you're going to pick the best of the 3 deals that you have, right? So whatever the best deal is that works, you're going to go with that. Now, let's say you spend more time and energy and money on marketing and you get 10 sellers to reach out to you this month. Well, now you only have to do one of those deals, right? So 1 out of 10 is a heck of a lot better odds of finding a good opportunity than potentially 1 out of 3. So think about that with everything. It's the same thing with finding sellers, finding tenants, finding private lenders. It's just, you're constantly marketing over and over and over and over and over and over and over to find the best of the best deals. Ian isn't like, hey, I'm going to go buy an apartment building, and the first apartment building that comes across his desk is like, yep, I'm going to buy this, right? It doesn't work like that. So,
but that's the thing. That's what it appears to people, and I think that's where this real estate investing as a business, not a hobby, comes in. Dude, people don't see the work, and this is not defending our position here. This is the truth. I know if I call any one of my friends that I text all the time about real estate investing, whether it's full-time or part-time for them, I know what they're doing almost every waking second of the day. If they're not spending time with family and they're not doing their full-time job, or they're not doing what they do inside their real estate, they're actively looking for deals, right? The perception is that, oh, Ian and Jason are just lucky and they find deals. I know Jay you still spend 5 figures on just one campaign to generate leads for you. I spend every waking second, when we're not doing a deal, handling taxes, doing operations, or anything else, I'm always combing my email or seeing what's going on, looking for deals, talking to people, picking up the phone. Same thing with lenders. You're always marketing yourself. And I think that's where some of the perception gets lost. People are like, oh, well, how do you find all these lenders? I pick up the phone, call people, ask other people what they're doing, and just keep poking poking the bear, right? Like keep swatting the hornet's nest. Hey man, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And boom, next thing you know, things start falling out. And then you get the advantage by knowing more people in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's like, hey, where do you find a deal? Everywhere. They're everywhere. You got to keep grinding through them to go find opportunities everywhere you go. Doing direct mail, doing potentially bandit signs, speaking at network events, going to network events, doing digital advertising everywhere. It's obviously you'll hone in to what works the best, but talking to realtors, there's so many different ways to do it. If you went down, a list, Ian, and just went through every deal that you've done and where that deal came from, they're from everywhere. That's just where they are. It's not one specific source. So, but also related to real estate investing as a business. I mean, there's so many sides of things. Like, in our early on in our career, we created organizational charts, right? And typically and we can go through some of these hats, but let's say there's 10 hats, right? So you take a regular organizational chart and you say, okay, well, I'm the CEO or the principal of the company, right? You can start with that. And then under you is what? Okay, well, you have marketer, marketing and business development, right? Then you have, managing construction. You have a bookkeeper. You have whatever, a property manager, however your business is set up, right? You have an administrative assistant, however it's set up, right? Well, guess what? If you're a one-man band or a one-woman band, it's you. You're wearing those hats. You take that organizational chart and you label what each person's position is on each one of those. And those might be you. When I started with my business partner, Chris, I pretty much had half. He had half. Some of the things we overlapped, right? And that's how it is. And that's how Ian and Dan did it as well. And then over time, it's cool. What's the next position you either hire for a position or you typically automate, you outsource it or you put a software in place or a system in place to automate it. That's typically how that works, right? And it's like, cool. Well, what's the one position that we need to either hire an expert for or like we just don't want to do, right? And typically it's some sort of like admin position or bookkeeper. That's typically usually one of the first hires, that we've seen because it's very kind of tedious oriented and it's tough for, the owner or the visionary of the company to work on.
Did you start Hard Money Bankers as a side hustle when you were working full time, or did you guys go all in day one?
That's a good question. So I was all in day one. Chris still had a W-2 job for a very short period of time. So we originally were going to do it as a side hustle. And it kind of like, we were like, you know what, let's just freaking go all in and do it.
Right. So what I was going to ask you is very early on in those like quote unquote side hustle days, because you were doing some side hustling when you were still lending money or whatever you did as a W-2 job. You told me some stories. How would you handle some of these things? Like, you're a side hustle guy, but you want a little more professional stature inside your business. And you're like, hey man, like, I want to be more on the ball with my tenants. Like, how would you handle it? Like, how would you start to outsource some of these things or find time to carve out in your day to do some of these things so you could still professionally invest in real estate, but still hold your W-2 job? Because I think we both agree, there's nothing wrong with being a high earner W-2 and investing real estate on the side. Absolutely. And then replace your income with your passive income at a later date and time.
The most successful people I know that own the most real estate are not full-time real estate investors. I mean, you can call them what you want, right? Like, I mean,
they're entrepreneurial in general.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. They own other businesses. They have other income stream, and they start investing in real estate. And some of them have worked for the government for a long period of time and make good, stable salaries. They like what they're doing, and they save their money, and then they invest their savings through actually most of these guys I don't think have self-directed IRAs because they're through government plans, so they can't use them so they can't use them through that. But I know one of them had a different type of retirement plan that he was able to do this. But anyways, they save their money and they invest in deals, and it keeps them a little bit more disciplined, and it also kind of keeps their confidence going. They know that if they fail on a deal, right, they're never going to risk more than they can lose. Right. So like, and what do you mean by that? Well, okay, I'm going to put this much money into this deal. And if I lose it all, I lose it all. Right. But they're losing savings. They're not necessarily losing other people's money. They're not typically putting themselves in a position that, they're going to lose their other W-2 job. Right. So they take $50,000, they invest in a property or whatever it is, hypothetically, and they can't lose more. They're not going to risk more than they can lose on the deal. And, and it works out, but they
like a division of their business, right? Like their business is working the W-2 job, and then they have a division that's real estate investing. And it's like, okay, we're gonna put a little bit of money out here and let's try it out and let's see what happens, right? Like in the end, you got to be comfortable with what you want to do. If you're comfortable and you need that security blanket to have a W-2 job, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Just carve out and know what you want to invest in real estate. If you're going to go all in, you better have a clear path to how you're going to become profitable as soon as possible, so you can earn out money, right? Like those are two big things, and they're two different things. And I guess it's hard to create the business or the lifestyle you want behind what you're doing if you don't know what your end goal is, right? Like, your end goal could be, I want to retire from my W-2. Well, how are you going to get to that? What do you need to replace that? Does it need to be double, triple, quadruple the money you're making today to make you feel comfortable?
And most people that own a full-time real estate investment company, their day-to-day is not investing in real estate. It's being an owner of a company and dealing with that side of things, which we'll talk about here in a second because it's much different. A lot of folks just want to invest in real estate. What do I mean by that? Okay, well, I like renovating houses and making them nice and then selling them, right? Like that's what somebody wants to do. They want to be involved in that. Well, guess what? You can do that and be involved in that when you own one property at a time or a few properties at a time, right? As you scale, you're not going to know the addresses of the freaking properties you own anyways. Or you're barely going to know them because like you're doing other things. You're creating, divisions inside your company. You're creating marketing campaigns. You are, you're creating financial models. You're analyzing stuff. You're hiring and firing employees, which is not fun, right? So all of a sudden now you're a manager. So you take your personality type and what you might be good at and what you might like, and then all of a sudden you might not like these things up here. So that like, be careful what you wish for, right? You can do a few properties at a time. Start doing 10 properties at a time. It's a completely different game. You're not potentially on site, doing properties anymore. And, here's another thing to think about. One of Chris and my good friends that has been a real estate investor for a long period of time. And I wouldn't necessarily say he's a good real estate investor. But, we had to have a heart-to-heart with him years back. And we're like, you know what, man? You're not a great real estate investor. You're good at this potential part of real estate investing, but you're not a good, and I shouldn't say real estate investor because he is a good real estate investor on a one-off real estate deal. He's not good at scale. And he's not a good business owner, right? He's not disciplined enough to wear lots of different hats and delegate and things like that. And he was doing so many deals that he had to. He was trying to micromanage each individual deal, which he couldn't do it. And we're like, here's the sad thing. You see that real estate shop across the street? You could go work over there. You could go work 9 to 5. You'd have no risk, and you could potentially make more money than you're making now without having any liability or any risk. And all you have to do is what you're good at, which was selling. Go freaking sell for them, generate leads, and you will be more successful. People don't want that. People want their own thing. They want status. They want ego. They want their own call it themselves, right? And that's hard. And how do you have a conversation with somebody like that and it breaks their heart that it's like, this means a lot to me. I really want to have my own company. I want to put my name on the wall. I want to put my plaque on the building. Like that goes. That's what are you after? What are you after?
American dream. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And, that's the thing. I think people look at real estate. They're like, oh, I can go do real estate and I can flip houses and I can make all this money on one deal. So they don't treat it like a business, but it is like everything you just hit on is so true. The bigger you get, the more exposure you have. Bigger is not always better. There's an advantage to being a boutique shop, right? And like only doing deals you want. But as you grow, what I spend my time on? Just talking with the accountant, talking about the next tax move, working on the next syndication deal, getting all the docs prepped for that. Our time is spent finding the deals, but then once we find the deals, a lot of the stuff goes out to people inside of our house to handle it. And you were going down a point, and I want to kind of go back to it. You're talking about the guy that was like, hey man, you could go make more money at another shop. Me and you just both read a book, and it's a term that I've heard for a while, but it's a term that you just learned. And it was a book that we just both read by, what's his name? Patrick Bet-David. I think I referenced him the other day, but is Your Next 5 Moves. And he talks about being an entrepreneur, right? Being an entrepreneur and being someone who's a great earner, a great W-2 guy, but then when you have free time on your lunch break, you can go do your own stuff or being an entrepreneur inside of someone else's company. I know Jason gives a lot of freedom. We give a lot of freedom to all of our employees and say, listen, man, here's a task. Have at it. However you want to handle it, do it. You are literally an entrepreneur inside of our company. If you say this is a good idea, have at it. I don't want to micromanage. Jason doesn't want to micromanage. And that's something about becoming a business and becoming bigger. For those of you guys that are wholesaling and you have people under you and you have a point man, they have an idea for a marketing campaign. Let them go do it. Let them go explore. Find a way to monetize them, right? Like, that's the best way to do it. Let them have their freedom. And your job as the owner is to come in there and just tweak them a little bit and challenge them and say, hey, what about this idea, right? You're more of the lever puller and saying, hey, what about this or what about that? And making sure that you guys aren't going to run into a wall. Let your employees have the freedom and handle it. If you sit there and micromanage it, oh God, being in business would be a nightmare. I wouldn't want to do it. There's no way if I had a micromanager, there's just no way I couldn't do it. And some people's nature it is, but I truly believe allowing your employees to be entrepreneurs will allow you to grow your company tenfold to wherever you expect it to be.
Yeah.
So,
dude, I agree. Dude, this isn't a shameless plug of our book, The Whiteboard. I promise it's not. But like a lot of this stuff,
plug it. Let's go.
I don't need to plug it. But it's a book that I wrote a few years ago, and this is from 2015, and this was one of the topics were, are you doing business or playing business? I'm like reading some of this, and it's like exactly what we're talking about. It's just.
But isn't it funny, like recurring themes that come up?
It is.
And then, as far as you want to get away from it, you're like, I want a new challenge. It's like keep working on the same thing over and over and over again, and your business will get that much incrementally better by working on the same topics, right?
Exactly. So this chapter is all businesses should have the same goal. You don't start a business just to start a business. You start a business to make money. And then this goes back to a lot of things we've been talking about is what really is your goal, because everyone has different goals, right? What our buddy Jimmy say at one of the mastermind groups that we did a few years ago, straight up, he was like, I wish I could do one deal a year that would net me $1 million. I wouldn't need to build any more houses. I'm sick of doing tons and tons. Who wants to do tons and tons and tons and tons of deals? I know too many real estate investors that are full-time real estate investors that do so many darn deals and they don't know what their bottom line numbers are. But I can tell you that their bottom line numbers aren't all that great for the amount of business and the amount of risk and liability they have. Now, again, this conversation isn't about not wanting to be a full-time real estate investor. I think it's a phenomenal idea to be a full-time real estate investor. But it's got to be done the right way from the beginning, because if it's not done the right way from the beginning, all of a sudden you're going to freaking build yourself a job, which leads to the beginning of this first chapter of what really is your goal. Many business owners are slaves to their businesses. Their businesses run them when it should be the other way around. As basic as it sounds, making $1 is one of the hardest things to do in business, although it is the most important. We could just sit up here and read this book, and it would be
turn the microphone on, hit the record button, and you can have your ebook that you've been talking about.
I already have that in an ebook, but it's another book that we don't. But
no, it's so funny that like this is what comes up, and it's funny that a lot of those topics in there are similar to the E-Myth and a lot of other business books that are out there. Is that take a step back, like dude, if you're out there, look, when you first start, it's all out war. You got to do whatever you got to do to get to the finish line, right? But at a certain point, you're going to say, man, I've been doing war for a long time, and how do we get to the more peaceful grounds, right? And then you start building your business, you start building yourself out, you start hiring the right people, and don't be, I'll be sure I'm honest with you, don't be cheap about that, right? Pay your people appropriately, and they will perform. And some people say hire from the top down, right? Like let somebody come in there and help you build what you might not be good at. You might find out that you like designing your flips, and nobody else is going to get control of that. But you could hire an acquisitions manager and a finance guy and a project manager. Well, then do it so you can do more deals, so you can design more houses. Like it doesn't matter what you want to do. If there's one thing inside your business that you want to retain, you're more than welcome to do that. No one's saying that you're not going to be on the streets every day. We're not on the streets every day anymore. We're still having fun. Like I was over at the apartment building today, hanging with the guys, dropping off some equipment. Was I swinging a hammer? No, but you still get to go out in the street. You go check out on your assets. You go see what's going on. So
yeah, it's just different. It's just different day to day of what's important, and that's why you need to know what you want to do. And to answer your question from earlier in the show is, how did you manage both things? Because, we didn't just have this crazy idea overnight of like, hey, let's just start a lending company. I mean, I owned some rental properties and I was doing fix and flips. And in New Jersey and Pennsylvania randomly. I wouldn't have done that now, knowing what I know now compared to then, but I didn't know any better then. And you stay up all night and you work your ass off. I mean, it's like, listen, there's a lot of things that, Gary Vee preaches that I don't necessarily agree with, but that's one of them. It's like, you freaking hustle, while everyone else is sleeping, you're working, and you do your 9 to 5, you come home, you eat dinner, you take care of family stuff, and you freaking go at it, and you freaking stay up all night and you do it if you want it. There's, obviously I'm all about reading, education, learning, potentially getting mentors and, to help people out, especially if they're new, especially with like the learning curve. I think it's important to do that, but that's only going to go so far, right? They're not going to do this for you, right? You got to figure out what side of this you want, and you do it. And it works. All different sides works, but you got to figure it out. And you're going to, no better way to do it than on the job, learning in real time. Obviously you want people to help you so you don't make big catastrophic mistakes. You don't want to do it that way. There's a humongous learning curve on it, but you just do it. It's just like anything else. Depends how bad you want it. Do you want it bad or you don't want it? I mean, I have my goals written down every day. I know what I have to do every day to hit my goals. Ian knows what he has to do every day to hit my goals. Think about how goals work in general, right? Chris and I, when we had our first business coach together, we hit our 10-year goal in 3 years. And we look back and we're like, that was pretty easy, right? And our 10-year goal was a big ass goal. And that's just, you write it down and you work with it. And goals change, right? But, figure out what you want 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? So let's say you have a 5-year goal. All right, well, if you have a 5-year goal or multiple goals of what you want to do, work backwards. Cool. Well, where do you need to be in 2.5 years? Okay, where do you need to be in a year from now? Where do you need to be in 6 months from now, 3 months from now, 1 month from now, 2 weeks from now, 1 day from now, right? If your goal in 10 years from now is to have, I don't know, whatever, doesn't matter, $1 million in real estate. Let's say you need $100,000 houses. I don't know, just something, hopefully in 10 years from now, you have a more lofty goal than that, but whatever it is, chances are what you need to do tomorrow is actually extremely simple. Extremely simple. It could be as easy as like, hey, I got to make one sales call, or I got to go on one appointment with a seller. It's extremely easy when you base it. Now, if you look at this as a 10-year mark and it's like, okay, I need to make 10,000 phone calls, that's overwhelming. But that's why you break it down into reality of what's going to happen very soon. And that's what we do. And that's what we did every day. But our like, again, what we talked about, our day-to-day stuff now, like you got to be realistic, right? Let's say you want to own 100 houses. Well, what you're going to be doing for one house is going to be very different than what you're going to be doing with 100 houses, right? At 100 houses, you're probably going to be a full-time property manager, and and you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn accounting. You're going to have to learn marketing. I mean, we've talked about this over time. It's like, hey, I wasn't. We've talked about accounting. Like, hey, what did you guys do? What did you guys do? For this, and that wasn't something that we're ready to have a conversation on day one, right? But eventually, like, I've seen how many big projects you've done, right? And they weren't really like real estate investor oriented. It was like, cool, we got to hire an employee, we got to figure out how benefits work, we got to figure out how the accounting works, we got to figure out this, we got to figure out that. So it's fun, man. It's fun, but you got to be into it, and you got to be passionate, and you got to be willing to sacrifice.
If you're not passionate about what you're doing, you might get into single family real estate and say, I hate this. If you hate it, you're not going to want to continue to grow it. You might find out that lending works for you. You might find out that investing side by side with somebody else is what motivates you. Jason was talking about goals, and I think something that everybody should understand about goals, and this is, I love your point about 10, 5, work backwards. But you got to remember, it's easy to work backwards, but then in real time when it happens, your goal is like a budget. It's a living, breathing thing, right? Like, you need to update it constantly. You might have your 10-year goal is to have $20,000 a week coming in. That's $1 million a year, right? But then you find out you're hitting all your marks, and then year 3, you're like, oh man, I didn't realize I was going to have this massive growth, and I need to take a pause, and I need to work on these things so I can get back onto my 10-year goal. Now your 10-year goal might become a 12-year goal, but you know what? it's okay because you're doing the right thing along the way and you're working towards it and taking a deep breath. And another thing that happens as you grow, like we're getting ready to raise some capital for this next deal that we're about to do. It kind of feels like we're trudging along and I'm just like stuck, right? But then I know it's going to go really, really fast and it's going to close out and boom. All right, now it's time to execute. Now that I'm executing, well, what's the next step in my goal process to get me to the next level, to the next goal, right? Like, so there's going to be a point where you're like, oh man, year 3 was supposed to be 20 properties, but I only did 5 because I got stuck because I did some bigger deals. You can go back and revisit that every year and say, okay, well, here's my next goal, or every 6 months, and a lot of people don't take the time to do that.
And there's a few things on that, and then we can kind of wrap this up. And if you want to go through some of these questions, is number one, people want instant satisfaction. They want to be instantly satisfied.
Yep.
They want they want to be satisfied instantly, and they're chasing around the next shiny object. And this is a long game. Can somebody go wholesale a house in a week and make $30,000? Yeah, absolutely. Most of us have done it, but that's not a consistent business model, right?
Not sustainable. Yep.
It's can you go flip a house in a few months? Yeah, absolutely. But like we're building foundations and real businesses. Like the market could take a massive shift at any time, right? So like, you don't want to go all the way up to here and then be completely out of business overnight, right? There's other good, responsible ways to grow a business. So people want that. They also look at like, I have to wait 10 years for this, right? And then, or they look at it as like, man, 100 properties, that's so far away. That's why you set your goals and start freaking small, right? Like, we did, I'm trying to think, like I did our first year in business, we did like 16 deals or 18 deals as a lender. And typically that's, as a lender, lenders typically do more than a regular real estate investor would do, right? So like, that's not a ton of deals, right? in general, a year for paying 2 full-time people, grinding, stuff like that. But I mean, whatever it is, it could be like, hey, I want to do my first deal. Like that's fine. Again, like we talked about, you can be full-time, you can be part-time. It just depends on what you want and what your game plan is. Most people's game plan is they want to retire and be financially free. And if that's the case, what's that number? What do you need a month? Do you need $10,000 a month? Do you need $20,000 a month? Do you need $1 million a month? Do you need $2,000 a month? No one's going to judge. That's your number. You figure out what it is and you work backwards. Like it's pretty much that simple. And this is hard. If you're starting out or if you're younger, it's a little bit harder to kind of put that in your head. It certainly was for me 15 years ago or before. But looking back, it's like, damn, time flies. This is easy. Like think about where you were a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You're light years ahead. We're all light years ahead of where we were, right? like that's.
Well, and there's two ways to look at it, right? You can say, okay, well, if I look back yesterday, I'm a day ahead, and I'm a light year ahead of where I was yesterday. Or the other thing you could look at is say, man, I had a really bad day, or I had a really bad hour. You know what? The best part about now is that's all in the past. You can start over today and continue to grow. Dude, everybody has problems. And I think the next podcast we should discuss failures and how to navigate them, because that is something that comes with goal setting. I see some comments about people talking about how they like the goal setting thing. And we should get into that, because we're getting ready to come into a season where it's the end of the quarter, the end of the year, people start gearing up. Some people slow down. And everyone wants to gear up for the new year, and we should start to discuss, now's the time to start discussing your goals, what you want to do, how can you instantly change those things. I know we started talking about how real estate investing is a business, and it's funny how you get to these things, but all this stuff relates. It all comes together, and it's almost hard to separate all these different topics.
Listen, we're kind of all of us in the same circle kind of have. It's easy for us to communicate this, and it's kind of second nature to us because we're all in the same circle related to it. It's like, hey, we get up and grind. We're focused. We know what we're working on today. We're going to have speed bumps throughout the day of playing defense, but we're all offensive mindsets. What I mean by we're doing offensive tasks. Hey, we're creating new marketing campaigns. We're going to generate business. We're going to create relationships. We're going to create a system for our team. maybe, looking to hire somebody else, like whatever it is. We're all trying to do offensive, proactive tasks on a regular basis. Does defensive stuff come up that you got to play, defense and you got to work backwards? Absolutely. Hey, oh shit, there's a big title issue on one of our properties and we're not gonna be able to close this anymore. It's a big slap in the face. Or a contractor just found a big issue and you're going to be over budget, or your capital source just backed out. Now you got to pivot and you got to prioritize trying to find more capital. Whatever it is, that stuff happens, right? It's life. That's part of it. We all go through that every day. There's challenges every day. If we kind of just gave up with a little bit of adversity, like that's part of it. Like, some of that stuff's not fun, but I guess be careful what you wish for. If your entire game plan is I just want to be a full-time real estate investor because, I flipped my first property and I made $30,000 and I know that all I have to do is 3 deals a year, 4 deals a year to replace all my income. I could do 4 deals in my sleep. Well, it's not that easy. And hopefully you know that. So again, be a full-time real estate investor. Don't be a full-time real estate investor. It doesn't really matter. The point is however you're doing it, treat it like a business, not like a hobby.
100%. That's it. And that might mean something different to everybody, how they treat it. But in the end, know your numbers. To me, it means know your numbers, know where you're going, know what you're trying to do, and, continue to grow as a person, grow as a business, and grow in your investing career, So super interesting conversation. I did see Sean Magner put, I deconstruct SMART goals. They define my actions always. I love the goal setting conversation. Yeah, man, it's very important, especially when you're talking about making your real estate investing company into a true business. You need to have goals. Your employees need something to work towards. Your contractors, whoever it may be, they want to know that you're going to continue to grow. John Vitch, sorry if I butchered your name. Any advice for finding your own deals? Yeah, man, you can go back, watch the past few videos or podcasts, however you're listening to this. You can see that, we've had some wholesalers and direct marketing. We actually, I think next week or 2 weeks from now, we're going to have someone on who's going to be discussing how to utilize social media to find deals. And then lastly, Steve asking about 1031 exchanges. If you go back, find the episode we did with Justin Keeney. I'll try to look up the number and post it. Really good episode about 1031 exchanges, DSTs, all kinds of crazy stuff. I know it's a hot topic based on the current political climate, but you should definitely check that out. And it was really good info. So,
all right, guys. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this week's Real Estate Reserve podcast. Make sure to tune in next week. We got Abi Golar. He runs a few different companies. He's a part of what else is he a part of? He's a part of a lot of different stuff. Think Realty. He's part of Think Realty podcast.
Think Realty. That's it.
And I think they have a Baltimore event coming out here soon. But he's a good guy. I've known him for a long time. He's a part of a lot of different things inside the real estate investing sector. And I know he personally generates most of his business through social media and especially YouTube videos. So
yep. And this month for the monthly meetup, we have a special guest to discuss title. Sounds boring, but I promise you it'll be very interesting.
So we do our housekeeping items at the end of the show now?
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
Whoever had spent the time to listen to us, they might as well see the next content.
Yeah, no, I get it. If you enjoyed this podcast, whoever you're listening, watching, hearing this, if you give us a review, a share, a like, a comment, that'd be super helpful. We want to spread the word. And if you're interested in this, I'm sure a lot of your friends and colleagues and business partners might be interested as well. So if you got value, if you didn't get any value, don't worry about it. If you did get any value, feel free to share it so we can communicate with as many folks as possible and help them out as well. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like,